Have you ever stood up from a chair after a nice, long chat with a friend, and for a moment, your knees just didn't want to cooperate? Maybe you feel a little stiffness in the morning, or a twinge in your hip when you're out for a walk. If that sounds familiar, please know you are not alone, and more importantly, it is not something you just have to accept as a normal part of getting older. For years, many of us have been told that a little bit of joint pain is just part of the deal when you pass a certain age. We chalk it up to wear and tear and maybe reach for a pain reliever or just take it easy for a while. But what if I told you that a lot of that discomfort isn't coming from how many birthdays you've celebrated, but from what's actually on your plate? It's a thought that might surprise you, but it's also incredibly empowering, because it means you have more control than you think. Hi there, and welcome. If you're over 65 and you value your independence, if you want to keep gardening, playing with the grandkids, or just taking a peaceful walk without that nagging ache, you are in the right place. Today, we're going to have a heart-to-heart about something that affects so many of us, but is rarely talked about in the right way. We're going to look at 5 common foods that could be secretly fueling inflammation and slowly chipping away at the comfort in your joints. We'll talk about why they cause trouble, and more importantly, what you can eat instead to help your body feel soothed and supported. So, let's ease into this together. Let's start with the very first food on our list, and it's one that might be hiding in plain sight in your kitchen right now. The first culprit is something many of us grew up thinking of as harmless, even healthy: sugar. And I'm not just talking about the white granules in the sugar bowl, though that is part of it. I'm talking about the added sugars that sneak into so many of the foods we eat every day. Think about those fruit yogurts, the jar of pasta sauce, that seemingly innocent breakfast cereal, or even a store-bought salad dressing. These are what we call hidden sugar sources. Here's what happens when we take in more sugar than our bodies can handle. Sugar sets off a process in the body called inflammation. In simple terms, when your blood sugar spikes, your body releases molecules called cytokines, which are like little alarm bells that signal your immune system. This is fine in small doses, but if we're constantly ringing that alarm bell with a steady stream of sugar throughout the day, the body stays in a state of low-grade inflammation. It's like a fire alarm that won't turn off. For your joints, this is a big problem. Your joints are intricate spaces where bones meet, cushioned by cartilage. When your whole body is inflamed, that inflammation settles into these spaces. It can make the fluid that lubricates your joints less effective and can aggravate the tissues around them. So, that stiffness in your fingers or that ache in your knee might not just be arthritis, it could be inflammation, fueled by something as simple as the sugar in your afternoon tea or the sweet treat you had after dinner. Now, I'm not suggesting you can never enjoy something sweet again. Life is too short for that. But being aware is the first step. Instead of a sugary yogurt, maybe try a plain Greek yogurt with some fresh, sweet berries. The berries give you that touch of sweetness, but they also come packed with fiber and antioxidants that actually fight inflammation. Instead of a store-bought sauce, try making a simple one at home where you control what goes in it. Small swaps like these can make a world of difference. Moving on to the next food, and this one is a bit of a heartbreaker for many of us, because it's a staple of so many wonderful meals and memories. I'm talking about refined white flour and the wonderful, comforting foods made from it: white bread, pastries, crackers, and many types of pasta. You see, when grains are refined to make white flour, they strip away the bran and the germ, which are the parts that contain all the fiber, vitamins, and minerals. What's left is mostly starch, a very simple carbohydrate. And just like sugar, when you eat that slice of white bread or those crackers, your body breaks it down into sugar very quickly. That means you get the same blood sugar spike and the same inflammatory response we just talked about. It's not that bread is bad, it's about the kind of bread. Our bodies handle whole grains much differently. They are digested slowly, releasing energy gradually and keeping that blood sugar steady. This prevents the inflammatory spike and gives you nice, steady energy throughout the day. Think about a classic breakfast of toast and jam made with white bread. By mid-morning, you might feel a bit sluggish or even a little hungry again, and that's because your blood sugar has already crashed. Now, imagine that same toast, but made with a hearty, dense, whole-grain bread. You'll likely feel fuller for longer, your energy will be more stable, and your joints won't be paying the price. So, when you're at the grocery store, take a peek at the ingredient list. You're looking for the first ingredient to say whole wheat or another whole grain, not enriched wheat flour. It's a small change in the aisle that can lead to a big change in how you feel when you get up from the table. Now, we've talked about sugar and the sneaky sugars in white flour. These are two of the biggest drivers of inflammation, but they are far from the only ones. And what's really interesting is how they work together. A lot of the foods we love combine these two ingredients. Think of a cookie, a piece of cake, or even a salty cracker. It's a double whammy for your joints. But don't get discouraged. Remember, this is about knowledge, and knowledge is power. Just by being aware of these two things, you are already taking a huge step toward protecting your joints and your overall comfort. You are giving your body a chance to quiet that inflammation and start healing. We've covered two big ones so far, but the list doesn't stop there. In just a moment, we're going to talk about a third food that might surprise you, especially if you're someone who loves to cook with certain kinds of oils. It's one of those things that has been marketed as healthy for years, but the truth for our bodies after 65 is a little different. We'll get into why some cooking oils can be a problem and what a much better alternative looks like. So, take a deep breath, give yourself a pat on the back for taking this time for yourself, and when you're ready, we'll dive right in. And that brings us perfectly to our third food, and this one is a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing. We're talking about certain vegetable oils and seed oils. Now, I know for decades we've been told that vegetable oils are the heart-healthy choice. Oils like soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, and safflower oil are in almost everything, from salad dressings to crackers to the oil we might use for frying. But here's the thing, our understanding of nutrition has come a long way, and we now know that these oils, especially in the large amounts we consume today, can be a real problem for joint health. The issue isn't the oil itself, but how it's made and what it does in our bodies. These oils are highly processed and are very high in a type of fat called omega-6 fatty acids. Now, omega-6 aren't bad in small amounts, our bodies need them. But the modern diet is so overloaded with them that they throw off a crucial balance with another type of fat called omega-3 fatty acids, which are the anti-inflammatory heroes found in things like fish and flax seeds. Think of it like a seesaw. On one side, you have omega-6, which can promote inflammation if you have too many. On the other side, you have omega-3s, which calm inflammation down. For most of us, especially if we're eating a lot of packaged and processed foods, that seesaw is slammed all the way down on the omega-6 side. This creates a perfect environment for inflammation to thrive, and your joints are often the first place you feel it. So, what's a better choice? Let's go back to the oils our grandmothers might have used. Extra virgin olive oil is a wonderful choice. It's rich in anti-inflammatory compounds and healthy fats. For cooking at higher temperatures, you might try avocado oil or even coconut oil. These are much more stable and don't contribute to that inflammatory imbalance. A simple swap, like making your own salad dressing with olive oil and a little lemon juice or vinegar, can make a huge difference. It tastes better, and your joints will thank you. Now, let's move on to our fourth food, and this one is a little tricky because it's not a single ingredient, but a category that's become a huge part of how we eat. I'm talking about advanced glycation end products, or AGEs for short. That's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but stick with me because it's important. AGEs are harmful compounds that form when protein or fat combine with sugar in the bloodstream. This process is scientifically known as glycation. You can think of it almost like caramelizing an onion. When you cook it slowly, the natural sugars in the onion brown and get sweet and sticky. A similar thing happens in our bodies, but instead of making a delicious topping for your steak, it creates these AGE compounds that are like little bits of rust or gunk. They can make your tissues stiff and less flexible, and that includes your cartilage and joints. But here's where it gets even more interesting. We don't just form AGEs inside our bodies, we also eat them directly. And the biggest source of them in our diet is from cooking methods that use high, dry heat. I'm talking about grilling, broiling, frying, and roasting at very high temperatures. Think about a crispy fried chicken leg, the charred bits on a barbecued steak, or a well-done, seared piece of meat. Those dark, flavorful crusts are loaded with ages. Now, I love a good cookout as much as anyone. But when we're over 65 and focusing on joint comfort, it's something to be mindful of. The problem with ages is that they're sticky. They can latch onto proteins in your body and cause them to become cross-linked, which is a fancy way of saying they lose their elasticity and become stiff. This is part of what contributes to stiff arteries and, you guessed it, stiff, painful joints. The good news is that we can reduce our intake of ages without giving up flavor. Instead of grilling a piece of chicken until it's charred, try poaching it, stewing it, or cooking it low and slow in a slow cooker with some broth and vegetables. Moist heat cooking methods, like braising, steaming, and stewing, produce far fewer ages. You can still get a nice sear on something every now and then, but making moist cooking your go-to method can be a powerful way to protect your joints. A lovely chicken stew, a pot of hearty bean soup, or fish gently poached in milk and herbs are not only gentle on your joints, they're comforting and delicious. So, we've talked about sugar, white flour, certain oils, and the way we cook our food. These are all pieces of the puzzle, and you might be starting to see a pattern. It's all about reducing the things that cause inflammation and stress in the body. We have one more food to cover, and this last one is perhaps the most surprising of all. It's something that many of us were told to drink more of for our health, but for some people, it can be a direct trigger for joint pain. We're going to get into that next, and I'll share what might be a much better choice to keep you hydrated and feeling your best. And that brings us to our fifth and final food, and this one often comes as a real surprise. It's not a food, technically, but a beverage. I'm talking about milk and, for some people, other dairy products. Now, before you click away thinking I'm about to tell you to give up your morning cereal or your comforting cup of tea with milk, please hear me out, because this is a very individual thing. For years, we've been told that milk builds strong bones, and that's true, it's a great source of calcium. But for a significant number of people, especially as we get older, dairy can become a hidden source of joint discomfort. The reason is that a protein found in dairy, called casein, can be inflammatory for some. For others, it's a type of sugar in milk called lactose that they have trouble digesting, and that gut distress can also trigger a whole-body inflammatory response. It's not that dairy is bad. For many people, it's perfectly fine. But if you're doing everything else right, cutting back on sugar, watching your oils, eating whole foods, and you still have that nagging ache, it might be worth taking a closer look at your dairy intake. It could be the missing piece of the puzzle. Think of it this way. Your body is like a bucket. Every inflammatory food you eat adds a little bit of water to that bucket. Sugar adds a little. White flour adds a little. Those oils add a little. For most of your life, the bucket might have been big enough that it never filled up. But as we get older, our systems can become more sensitive, and that bucket gets smaller. So, a food that never bothered you before, like a glass of milk or a slice of cheese, might now be the one thing that finally makes the bucket overflow, and you feel it as pain or stiffness in your joints. So, what's the experiment? For 2 weeks, try cutting out the most common sources of dairy. That means milk, cheese, yogurt, and ice cream. See how you feel. Pay attention to your hands, your knees, your hips when you wake up in the morning. You might be surprised to find that the stiffness has eased, or that a twinge you've just learned to live with has quieted down. If you do miss that creaminess, there are so many wonderful alternatives these days. Unsweetened almond milk, oat milk, or coconut milk can be delicious in tea, coffee, or on cereal. There are even dairy-free yogurts and cheeses made from nuts or soy that can fill that gap. It's just a 2-week experiment. You have nothing to lose and potentially a lot of comfort to gain. So, we've taken this journey together, and we've looked at the 5 common culprits, the hidden and not-so-hidden sugars, the refined white flour, those tricky vegetable oils, the way we cook our food that creates those ages, and finally, the potential role of dairy. This might feel like a lot to take in all at once. You might be thinking, where do I even start? And that's perfectly okay. This isn't about being perfect overnight. It's not about cutting out every single one of these foods starting tomorrow. That would be overwhelming, and frankly, it's not sustainable. The goal is awareness and small, gentle changes. Maybe you start by swapping your afternoon cookie for a piece of fruit. Maybe you try a new salad dressing with olive oil instead of the store-bought kind. Perhaps you try that 2-week dairy experiment. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't pull every weed all at once. You do a little bit each day, and over time, the garden begins to thrive. Your body is the same. Every positive change you make, no matter how small, is like pulling a weed. You're giving your body less to fight against and more of what it needs to heal and support itself. And the rewards are so much more than just less pain. When your joints are happier, you move more easily. When you move more easily, you feel more energetic and independent. You can get down on the floor to play with your grandchildren without worrying about how you'll get back up. You can take that walk without dreading the first few steps. You can live your life with more freedom and joy. I truly hope this video has given you some new ideas and a sense of hope. Remember, you have more control over how you feel than you might think. It's not about your age, it's about the choices you make. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever noticed a particular food that seems to make your joints ache more? Or maybe you've already tried some of these swaps and felt a difference. Please, share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might be just the encouragement someone else needs to hear. If you found this helpful, and you'd like to join our community here for more simple, practical advice on living well at any age, please click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's a free and easy way to support the work we do here, and it ensures you won't miss the next video, where we'll tackle another topic to help you feel your absolute best. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Be gentle with yourselves, be curious about what your body is telling you, and here's to moving through life with a little more comfort and a whole lot of joy. Take care.